Good day, everyone. This is Pinnacle Professional College, and today we will be going through the case study, the pre-seen material for the strategic case study for the April 2022 examinations. So if you are taking the strategic case study, please note that we'll be going through the case and analyzing the case before you go into the exam hall. It's crucial you do this before you go into the exam hall because it will help you to understand the context of the case and be able to answer the questions they'll ask in the exam hall. Before we continue, I would like to say that case study analysis is not so much of a difficult thing if you know what you are doing. There are a few pointers that I need to make even before we start, right? First of all, when you are doing a case analysis, there are a couple of things that you need to know. Number one, you are trying to understand the company history and its growth trajectory, right? Where the company came from and where it is heading towards. Another thing you want to do as you are analyzing the case is to understand the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats of the organization. You also want to understand issues surrounding competition. And you also want to know about, the 4 Ps, which is basically the place, price, products, and promotional techniques of the organization. So these are a couple of things that you need to understand. And the last thing I would mention is that you need to apply what I call the 5 Ws. So the 5 Ws is used to interrogate the passage, right? When you read the passage, you need to interrogate the passage, which means that you need to ask yourself questions along the way as you read the case. So you have the 5 Ws will be your who, your where, your when, your why, and your what, right? So these are 5 Ws. So if you read something, a paragraph, you need to ask yourself, who is it referring to? Why is this being said, right? If you understand especially why it's being said and the context of it, you are able to dig deeper into the case and analyze it properly. So with that being said, we would move on to the case itself. We'll move on to the case itself. As noted here, candidates will not be allowed to bring the results of this analysis into the exam hall. So it's very crucial that you do this analysis before you go into the exam hall. So here we are talking about a company called HPC. And with the introduction, it says HPC Limited is a wholly Ghanaian-owned agro-processing and preservation business based in the Ashanti region of Ghana. Now, as I delve into the case, I will raise issues and you'll be able to see potential or likely questions that might be asked during the exam. And I also give hints around the strategic models that are likely going to show up. These are not guaranteed, but it's always good to have an idea of, it's always good to have an idea of the models that are likely to show up and prepare yourself beforehand. So the first statement says HPC Limited is a wholly Ghanaian-owned agro-processing and preservation business based in the Ashanti region, right? So here you see the word limited, right? So immediately you can foresee that this is a limited liability company. And as you go along, you see that the case will tell you that HPC Limited is a wholly Ghanaian and agro-processing and preservation business based in the Ashanti region. So HPC Limited is a limited liability company. And what is a limited liability company? A limited liability company is a company whose losses are only limited to the investment of the owners in the business and not to their personal assets, right? So they have a limited liability. The liabilities of the company does not extend to their personal assets. So that's what a limited liability company is. Now we are told that HPC is a wholly Ghanaian-owned agro-processing and preservation business. It's fully Ghanaian owned. So what does this mean, right? What does this mean? When you're thinking about this, you must think in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this could be a strength in the sense that if it's wholly Ghanaian owned, then the founders who are Ghanaians understand the Ghanaian market, understand the Ghanaian context, and are able to adapt their products and services to meet the Ghanaian, to meet the Ghanaian market. It could also be a con or a disadvantage in the sense that sometimes when you have a diverse pool of founders from different countries, what it does is it brings different perspectives, international perspectives to conversations, and that helps drive growth. But in this case, we would see as we go along in the case whether this wholly Ghanaian owned thing is a strength or a liability. So we would be looking at that as well. Now, this pre-sale material goes ahead to tell us the industry they are in, right? The industry they are in. So they are in the agro-processing and preservation business, right? Note how I'm analyzing this case. I'm analyzing it step by step and decoupling the issues out of the case, or basically bringing the issues out of the case. So you have the industry, which is an agro-processing and preservation business. Now, we need to know a little about this industry, right? We need to know a little about this industry, have a fair view of this industry and how it works, basically. How does this industry work? What are the key drivers in this industry? So let's look at a few. First, we need to know what, here we are deploying the 5 Ws again, what the agro-processing and preservation business is. As the name suggests, it's basically agricultural produce processing, right? So we are looking at agricultural foods that are being processed into some more, into some more finished form, processing of raw agricultural produce and preserving it in a way that is able to have a longer shelf life. So that is what agro-processing and preservation is, right? And in Ghana, we need to understand that where this company is based, we need to understand that one of the main sources of revenue for us, apart from the services industry, is agriculture. So this, on the face of it, looks like a booming industry. And I'm in no way saying that there are no challenges in this industry, but there will be. But this is a booming industry because Ghana has a lot of agricultural resources that is able to deploy in Ghana and in the international markets. So you have agro-processing and preservation business. So what should come to mind when you hear this statement? One of the things you should come to mind is, the technological tools that are used to transform raw materials into value-added products, right? Into finished products. Because here you are looking at processing and preservation. So you want to know, how the transformation process is done, right? And so immediately, a model that should come to your mind is the value chain model. And as we go down this case, you would see, you see things around that. So this company is based in the Ashanti region of Ghana. So why the Ashanti region? That's the question I would ask myself. Why the Ashanti region and not the Greater Accra region or not the Northern region? There might be some reasons to that. And one of the reasons could be the proximity to farm produce, right? The proximity to farm produce, because sometimes companies would want to station their headquarters in a place where they can easily gain access to the raw materials that they are looking for. And this might be the case in HPC. So, and that's something that we'll discover as we go along. Note that when we talk about the Ashanti region is also known for being, a very lively city, a very lively region, and also it's also known for agriculture in some sense. So probably that's the decision or motivation for locating their business in Ashanti region, right? So this first sentence alone, we are able to glean a lot of things. Right now, we've seen that because of the industry, processing and preservation, we can then deduce that the value chain model would be necessary. We've also seen the place of the business or the location of the business in talking about the 4 P's, right? The 4 marketing P's, which is place, price, product, and promotion. So the 4 marketing P's, we see that the place or the location of this business is in the Ashanti region. We've also determined that it's wholly Ghanaian owned. We've talked about the advantages and disadvantages of that. And we know that it's a limited liability company. So from this sentence alone, we have pointers as to what to touch or what to know. And that's what you do when you analyze a case. It says that the company was incorporated on 29 December 1995. So let's understand what incorporation is about. What is incorporation? So incorporation is basically when a business is born, kind of like the birth date or the birthday of the business, right? It's when it's legally brought into existence. That's what we mean by incorporation. So the company was incorporated on 29 December 1995. 29 December 1995. So when you read this date, you don't pass away. You don't just pass away, because the date is crucial. The date and the timing of the incorporation of the business, or when the business came into being, is very, very crucial, right? In 1995, this was probably a time where we saw a lot of advancements in technology globally, right? How we do business and how we process agricultural produce began to change because of the infusion of technology or technological equipment, right? So the timing is crucial. And also in the Ghanaian agro-processing and preservation space, there was a lot of kind of companies who were coming up at the time, and there were a lot of technological transformations that were happening at the time, right? So in 1995, 2 things were happening here: technological transformation, and 2, in Ghana, you have a mix of probably a few large companies, I should say, who were in the space at the time, and some other small companies who were taking on the agro-processing space. These are all assumptions that we can inject into the case based on the timing of the incorporation. We are not told explicitly. So you see here, it says it's a limited liability company, right? So our assumption was right when we saw the limited. We know that HPC is a limited liability company, and its objective is to focus on the processing and packaging of various types of fruits for the local and foreign markets. So this is very, very important as well. We know the objective of the business, the goal of the business. And the goal of the business will define the scope of activities of the business. So we know that HPC's intention is to process and package various types of fruits. So there's a product range there. We are looking at different kinds of fruits for the local and foreign markets. So the target market is huge. Now, if you want to be able to reach the foreign market, then it has its own strategies and challenges as well. How do you reach the foreign market? Because you need to, if you want to reach a foreign market, that means you need to understand the legal regulations surrounding that market, the desires and taste of that market, and what the customers need in that market. So you have a sense of understanding, basically the taste and preferences of those in that market. So even though the company is based in the Ashanti region, it wants to extend its frontiers to the foreign markets, which is very, 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 very important, Now, we are told that the company is also engaged in the importation of partly processed food items for further processing and packaging by adding flavors and spices from all around the world to suit both the domestic and international market. So again, the emphasis here is on domestic and international market. This is certainly not a local business. This is a business that is looking to penetrate the international market. Apart from the fact that this company focuses on processing and packaging, they also import partly processed food items, and they further process it and add some spices to it, which makes it appealing for both the domestic and international market. So what does this mean? Here we are seeing a value addition process at play. And that's why the value chain model is something that you should know going into the exam. You are seeing the value addition process at play. My main thing would be, since they are importing these partly processed food items, at what cost are they importing it, right? At what cost are they importing this processed food items? And is it not possible to grow these food items in Ghana? Why the need for importation? It's probably because the food items do not grow in Ghana and they need to import these partly processed foods. Or is it that they do not have the capacity to grow these food items here? Because if you import, there's going to be a cost to it, the cost of the products that you are importing, as well as import duty. So these are things that HPC needs to take into consideration in this scenario. Now, we've been told about the objectives, right? We've been told about the objectives, and then in the objectives, you find some strengths and even some weaknesses or even opportunities, right? And the strength is that they have the international market in view. They have the international market in view, which means that they are not only locally centered, right? So their customers will span across the globe. Now, HPC has taken on the duty to supply its food juice to all the regions of Ghana. Now, what does this mean? Right? So this company has been able to find a way to make its product attractive, and that they're able to supply their products to every single region in Ghana. And that's a huge feat. That's a huge feat because sometimes companies will be able to penetrate certain regions and not other regions. One of the key things here that I would like to see, or that I'll be thinking about, is a regional analysis of a regional analysis of the profit and loss that each region brings to HPC. So if you look at the different regions that HPC will supply to, what will be the P&L? What will be the revenue? What will be the costs of supplying to those regions? Are there regions which are underperforming? Are there regions which are overperforming? And why is that the case? So that's something to think about. Now, we are also told that this company has been able to keep up a business level strategy, Now, there are three levels of strategy. The first level of strategy is corporate level strategy. The second level of strategy is business level strategy. And the third level of strategy is functional strategy. So here, we are being told that HPC has been able to keep up a business level strategy. So let's understand what a business level strategy is. A business level strategy is basically a plan for attracting customers, gaining their business, and selling a product or service to make a profit. A business level strategy is basically a plan that is designed to help a company be competitive in the market. It's designed to help a company be competitive in the market. It's designed to help a company to be competitive in the market. That's very, very important. Very, very important. So it's very, very wise for HPC to have this business level strategy in place. But because of the mention of business level strategy, I'm tempted to explain corporate strategy and functional strategy. So a corporate strategy, on the other hand, focuses on the market that the organization wants to enter and how they intend to do it. So this is a high-level strategy that focuses on, the markets they want to enter. We see here that HPC's objective is to, process and package various types of fruits for the local and foreign market. So a corporate strategy will look at how they intend to enter these markets and, the plan for doing it, The functional strategy, on the other hand, is what we call departmental strategy, right? And this strategy supports and drives the achievement of the business level and corporate level strategies. These are departmental strategies. Every organization will have functions or departments, and these departments will have strategies. And these strategies are basically drivers of the corporate and business level strategy. So in the introduction alone, we've been able to glean a lot of insights. We've been able to use the SWOT analysis to understand some strengths, some weaknesses, some opportunities there, and probably some threats. So we've been able to see the value addition process, looking at the value chain model. After this analysis, I'll be touching on some key models that you should know. So stick and stay with me. Every organization will have what we call a vision and a mission. A vision is the desired future state of the organization, right? And a mission is the purpose of the organization. Now, these three things are somewhat interrelated. Number one, vision. Number two, mission. And number three, values. Vision, mission, values. These are somewhat interrelated. Now, the values of an organization will drive its vision and mission, right? Or will even determine how they achieve the vision and mission. Now, so let's look critically at HPC's vision. HPC's vision, right? Their vision is to expand into new segments. So here, corporate strategy becomes key. Corporate level strategy, because they are looking at expansion into new segments, into new markets. And they are intending to do this with excellent quality. Anytime you hear quality and exceptional value, you should think quality at what cost? Quality at what cost, right? And if you are thinking at what cost, then you need to think the supply chain of the organization, how the organization intends to source for these quality products, right? So quality at what cost? In the food industry and beyond, with our superior ability. So that's the vision. Sounds like a fantastic decision, but from the vision alone, we can see that they have they want to expand, right? And expansion one of the things that you look at when a company wants to expand is you want to understand the current state of the company, because the company would not want to spread itself too thin where it's like even loses its value in the first place. So it's just like growth, right? There's a reason why we grow day by day and not necessarily year by year. So, a child will go through certain developmental stages. And if an organization hasn't gone through those developmental stages and wants to expand, it might be setting a trap for its death, basically. So we want to understand the key financial indicators that make it possible for HPC to expand. This is a vision, so this is a long-term plan, but we want to understand the financial indicators that supports this expansion, and whether HPC is ready at this time. Now the mission, which is the purpose of the organization, is to build a world-class food experience, which would delight the taste buds of Ghanaians and beyond. So again, we see the emphasis on the international market. Now, if an organization wants to go global, one of the things you should be keen on is understanding the advantages and disadvantages of such expansion motives or going into different markets, right? What are the advantages and disadvantages? So let's look at a few, right? And I'll leave you to dig deeper into it because we have a lot to cover. So first off, if an organization wants to go into other markets, it means that they gain customers from that market, right? And their brand will be known in that market. And that, and that in its sense gives a global footprint to the organization. So it's good for customer acquisition, right? And getting your brand out there globally. But what are some of the disadvantages or challenges? In an international market, the regulations are different, right? So you need to weave your way around the regulations to be able to do business. Also, another challenge is that in an international market, the people are different. And so their taste and preferences are different. And so you need to be able to adapt your product or service to the tastes and needs of those in that market. So please think about the whole process, of trying to sell something overseas, right? Look at the advantages and disadvantages of expansions, because it might come handy in the exam. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the core values of an organization will drive its vision and mission. The core values of an organization will drive its vision and mission. Now, so what are the values of HPC? What are the values of HPC? Very, very important. What are the values of HPC? Now, we see here, I think 4 important values, but I would touch on them and explain them. Right? I'll touch on them and explain them. Number 1 is relationship building. So apparently HPC's number 1 priority is its customers. The customers of HPC are very, very key. Now, so when we talk about relationship building, what do we mean here? So if customers are the key priority of HPC, then it's critical that we look at customer acquisition and retention, right? So when a customer comes in to buy something, how do we make that not the first and last time, right? That's what HPC means by relationship building. So ensuring customer loyalty. so that customers don't just buy for the first time and that's it. Now, to be able to build that relationship, it hinges on a couple of things. Number one is, a culture of service in the organization, a culture of service, good customer service or customer experience, as it's called today, in the organization. So if you have a good customer service and good customer experience that is given to these customers, then it's likely that they'll be more loyal, right? Another thing, so that's on the people side. Another thing that's also important is systems. So these days, for organizations to ensure that they're able to build those relationships with their customers, they engage the use of systems. And you might have heard of CRM, which is a customer relationship management software that is able to understand, where we are able to gather data on our customers, understand their buying patterns, understand when they are buying, where they are buying, and why they're even, at what points they even buy. It gives basic customer data. And we're able to process this customer data to make effective customer decisions. So things like loyalty programs stem from customer data that we get from the CRM software. So on the people side, you need a good customer service, a culture of good customer service. And on the system side, you need a software that is able to capture, what customer activity and, be able to, you understand the customer better to be able to offer services that meet the needs of the customer. The second value, and if you realize all these values tie into the vision and mission, the second value is quality. Like I said, anytime you hear quality, you need to think a couple of things. Number one is cost or price. Number two is the value chain, right? Because agricultural produce will go through a transformative process, it's important that you ensure quality at each and every stage. So, and you do this by creating a culture of quality and also engaging suppliers who also have quality material. So you source from the best suppliers. You source from the best suppliers. So when you're looking at quality, you need to look at costs, at what costs, and from which suppliers will you get these raw materials or inputs. And also when you're transforming these inputs or raw materials into some form of processed product, we need to ensure quality at every stage. And that comes from having a culture of quality in the organization. Number three is creativity and innovation. The company's efficiency is born out of creativity. Now, if you want to maintain creativity in an organization, creativity comes from research. Sometimes it comes from creativity and innovation, basically comes from R&D, what you call research and development, right? And research and development, when I see research and development, one of the things you need to know about research and development is that this department, because it's more of an innovation and creativity department, it tries out different things. Some might work, some might not work, and sometimes most of it doesn't work because it's a creativity and innovation department or a research and development department. So there are lots of things that they try out in terms of, processing products and all of that. It's just like the way someone will try out or try to develop different inventions, and all of them won't work until just one works. Similar to how the research and development team operates. So they do their research, they develop different kinds of alternatives that would help HPC achieve its goals. But sometimes some of these are not workable, right? But you have to allocate money or make budgetary allocations to the R&D department. So here we want to know the willingness of HPC to be giving money to this R&D team and sometimes not seeing short-term, immediate financial results from it. Because you'll be giving money to this R&D department, funding them to be able to come up with developments that will be groundbreaking and will help HPC to basically, take control of the market. Number 4 value is around human resource management. So we are looking at the acquisition, recruitment, development, and retention of individuals who have the skills necessary. So these 4 values will help drive the mission, right? So for example, if you pick quality, you see that quality was mentioned in the vision and mission, right? You cannot talk about quality without talking about creativity. You cannot talk about creativity and innovation without talking about research and development. So they are all intertwined and they play out to achieve the vision and mission. Now let's look at the operations. Now, when you hear the operations, you are looking at the day-to-day activities of HPC. And it's important here that when you look at the day-to-day activities, you would see some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you need to pull out your pen and paper and start to jot some of these strengths or weaknesses or whatever it is, right? One of the things I didn't mention was around competition. So we said that HPC developed a business level strategy, and that makes it competitive in the market. So we'll be looking at some competition models. And from prior discussions as well, some of the things that we need to look at is the internal and external environment, right? So what are the happenings in the external environment, which is you look at the political factors, the economic factors, the sociocultural factors. You basically use the PESTEL framework, which we'll be discussing as we go along. So please know these models. They are very, very important. So HPC is one of the largest agro processors in Ghana. Employs a lot of people. The company has expanded its operations in the production of fresh fruit juice in all regions of Ghana. We already talked about. So HPC processes fruits such as, so look at the product range here, a huge product range: pineapples, mangoes, papaya, coconut, passion fruit, and banana. And where do they get, remember the 5 W's I mentioned, where do they get these fruits from? They get it from the Eastern and Bono regions in Ghana. So why these regions? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Why these regions? It's possible that in these regions, there's a lot of farms in those areas which deal with growing these fruits, and also you're able to get these fruits at a cheaper cost with high quality in these regions. So the Eastern and Bono regions in Ghana are quite close to the Ashanti region. So that's, some form of proximity right there. So the company would like to venture into the processing of melons and pomegranates, which it will source from Egypt and South Africa. Again, they are trying to move their product line, add more fruits to their product line, and this will require them importing. So, like we mentioned, what will be the cost of importation? Is it that we can't grow melons in Ghana? And if that's the case, what is the importation cost to be like? And how does that add to our entire value chain process? Very, very important. Very, very important. So one of the strengths here we see is that HPC has a huge, product range. and a huge product range, you're able to serve different kinds of customers in the market. Fresh cut fruits were the first product of HPC, and initially quantities were prepared for supermarkets in Ghana. So the focus was fresh cut fruits, and it was done for supermarkets in Ghana. Now, this is very, very important. Smallholder farms provided the majority of the supplies. Now, what are smallholder farms? The name suggests that these are basically small farms, which are, in terms of size, the size of land is probably anywhere from 1 to 5 acres and under, right? So these are not huge commercial farms. These are smallholder farms, and they supply the majority of pineapples for HPC. Now, as HPC begins to grow, the question would be, can they rely on these smallholder farms? Can they rely on these smallholder farms? So that's a huge question, because as their capacity begins to expand, as they move into other regions globally, can these smallholder farms, do they have the capacity to be able to supply them the fruits that they want? So that seems to be like a weakness or a threat of some kind. Now, the company purchases over 1,750 tons of raw fruit products from the fruit growers on a monthly basis. So that's a huge amount of raw fruit products. That's a huge amount of raw fruit products. 1,750. Right, 1,750 tons of raw fruits on a monthly basis. So we are looking at close to about 24,000 tons of raw fruit products in a year. 1,750 is close to 2,000. So about close to, let's say, 22,000 tons of raw fruit products. And that's huge. This linkage between the small fruit cultivators and the processing company is beneficial, as the farmers benefit from the prompt payment for their supplies and a higher rates per kilo of produce compared to other competing buyers in the area, which ensures a continued supply of raw materials to its factories. So this is a huge benefit here. This is a huge benefit here, where we see that these farmers are able to benefit from prompt payments. But what I'll be thinking about here is, what is likely to change, right? As I mentioned, are there going to be capacity constraints for these smallholder farms? And that is likely going to impact HPC as a company. So how would HPC solve that problem? Would they shift from depending on smallholder farms to commercial farms? And would they also try to, generate their own produce in-house, where they also get into farms and, grow their own products? These are questions that come to mind. Now, another thing that HPC does for these farmers is they provide training on agricultural methods to these small scale farmers, right? To these small scale farmers. And they have also been known to pre-finance the production activities of these farmers. So first of all, they are pre-financing the activities of these farmers. So the monies they are putting in, what is the return they are going to make? How much is the budget? How is it affecting their bottom line? And what is the return that HPC is seeing from this pre-financing? So HPC seems to be doing a lot for these farmers, which is a huge strength of theirs, because it enhances their reputation in this community, and they're able to provide employment to a lot of people. And another thing is that this company, HPC, is also making capital investments here, which is quite interesting, right? they are doing as much as they can to support these fruit growers, right? So they also provide input and equipment. And equipment is capital expenditure. And the capital expenditure can sometimes be pricey, right? Can sometimes be pricey. So whilst they are doing all of this, what is the benefit they are getting in return? What is the benefit they are getting in return? Because one of the benefits they will get in return is, it enhances their brand and it makes them acceptable in the community, right? Because they are doing, and it helps them to support these fruit growers as well. But this seems to be a form of kind of buying the loyalty of these fruit growers, right? Buying the loyalty of these fruit growers. So because they are giving them all these equipment, pre-financing, this technical advice, etc., it helps the suppliers to remain loyal in the supply of produce. So what does this tie to? Relationship building, which is a value of HPC. Relationship building, which is a value of HPC. Very, very important. The close proximity of HPC factory to these farmers allow it to obtain a regular supply of raw materials. We predicted this in the beginning, right? We predicted this on the beginning when we were looking at the location of the business, right? In the Ashanti region and not in a capital city like Accra. We realized that it's possibly because it's close to, farms that they source raw materials or fruits or foods from, and they're able to deliver freshly harvested fruit to local consumers within 24 hours, right? So what we will say here is that, so let me read that last sentence. The close proximity of HPC factory to these farmers allows it to obtain a regular supply of raw materials for its processing plants, which facilitates delivery of freshly harvested fruit to local consumers within 24 hours. Now, one of the reasons for the success of a company like Amazon is its delivery. Very fast delivery, very fast delivery. And if HPC wants to maintain its edge in the market, one of the things it should look at is delivery. 24-hour delivery seems quite very, very quick. But with the goal of continuous improvement, can this be improved? That's the key question here. Can this thing be improved? Now, again, in the last paragraph of the operations, so when we say operations, we are looking at one of the things we should think about is the value chain, how raw materials are transformed into finished products by the use of, value-adding activities. So here we see that a significant amount of value addition is done. And here we are being told how the operational framework of HPC works. So the fresh fruits are bought and transported from local farmers to the factory. They are cleaned and cut and packaged for sale. It's very, very crucial. This is very important. So here we are seeing the value chain in operation. We are seeing the value chain in operation, right? We are seeing the value chain in operation. And we see that we are told where they get the raw materials from, and how they are even able to clean this raw material, clean the fresh fruits, and even package it, right? And even be able to package it and make it look good, and worthy for sale. Make it look good and worthy for sale. So this is something that is very, very crucial. And I would say if you haven't looked at the value chain model, please go and do so. It's very, very important. It's very, very important. So when you're looking at the value chain analysis, there are a few things that I need to bring to your attention. There are a few things that I need to bring to your attention. So in the value chain model, you would see inbound logistics, which under the primary activities, you see inbound logistics, you see operations, you see outbound logistics, you see marketing and sales, you see service or after sales service, right? Here, we are being told that the fresh fruits are bought and transported from local farmers to the factory, right? So that's inbound logistics. They are clean, cut, everything is done with it and packaged. That's operations for sale. So we see the value chain here at play. Fresh cut fruits and juices are produced under strict domestic and international food safety and quality management systems, right? So we are looking at the various primary activities that are required to make the product marketable and sellable. Additionally, the products are labeled and branded by the company, right? And an important step in the value chain process. So marketing and sales. Under the primary activity, you see marketing and sales. They are then transported by air, by the company. They are then transported by air freight using commercial airlines to market locations in the northern part of Ghana, right? So you are looking here outbound logistics, how the product moves from the shelf of HPC to the customer, which is outbound logistics, right? So one of the key things we see here is they use the airline to transport their products, probably because of the speed, right? So what that will mean is that if there's some form of breakdown with airlines, that's also going to affect their deliveries, their delivery timelines. The company's access to supermarkets in the regional capitals of Ghana is often attributed to the networks within the supermarket industry. So we see some form of marketing here. That's marketing. We see some form of marketing here, how they are able to place their products in front of the customer. They go through the B2B route where they go to supermarkets and supermarkets are able to shelve their products and then that reaches the customer. A very, very intelligent way of marketing their products. From a policy perspective, the continued expansion of Ghana's agro-processing industry may be attributed to regulatory reform, tax incentives, market linkages, investment into new fruit varieties, and public-private partnerships. So here, from a policy perspective, you must be thinking the external environment, and you'll be looking at the PESTEL framework, which looks at political factors, economic, sociocultural, technological, ecological, and legal factors, right? So from a policy perspective, we are looking at some economic and political and even sociocultural changes here, right? Here, very, very important, very, very important. So before we move on to HPC's corporate social responsibility, and then this will be the first part of the analysis. Right? This will be the first part of the analysis. We would do subsequent sessions. HPCs, before we move on to that, there are some important things that we've covered. You need to understand your SWOT analysis. You need to understand the company structure, right? It's a limited liability company. You need to know the external and internal environments. You need to understand value chain by now, and you need to know the PESTEL framework, right? And all of that. So these are some few areas that you need to understand. I've thrown in areas that you need to question yourself because it's possible that it might show up in the exam. Now, HPC's corporate social responsibilities. Now, corporate social responsibility is basically organizations doing things in the community and giving back to the community, right? So this this is essentially giving back, but it also serves as a marketing tool and branding tool for the company. So what the company is doing here is that it's giving back to orphans and destitute children. The company also offers financial support to orphanages. Due to HPC's dedication to orphans, the company ensures there is no child labor, right? So they do not engage in child labor in trying to process their products. The company ensures that all purchases of its agro products for export are from women cooperative associations. So we see some diversity and inclusion here. This policy is in line with the government of Ghana's poverty alleviation program, right? So first things first, I would say that it's important to understand what corporate social responsibility is. Don't be surprised if something around this comes up in the exam. What is corporate social responsibility? And what are the advantages of it to HPC? Right? What are the advantages or benefits that HPC can derive from corporate social responsibility? Right? So this is where we would end this analysis for today. We'll be continuing in another series. We'll be talking about agro processing and its significance to the economy. So here we are looking at the external environment. We are looking at things. We are looking at things from a national level, right? National level. So we are looking at probably even national competitive advantage, the Porter's 5 forces. So this is where we would begin that. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. I'll be sharing more analysis. Thank you and have a good day.